All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Please rise with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. First item on the agenda is a check presentation to St. Vincent de Paul Society Food Bank. Bill, you want to lead us off?
So as council knows, we had our third annual Carpenter Cross Bike Race in Horsham Township this September. We took a year off because of COVID, and we were pleasantly surprised that we had about the same amount of riders participate as we did in 2019. Since we started this bike race, the proceeds, a portion of the proceeds goes to our local what many of us call our local food bank, St. Vincent de Paul, over at St. Catherine's. So this evening, we're proud to present the proceeds from that bike race to St. Vincent de Paul, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Haggerty.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. As you all know, what Bill just said, this was our third year of our what is now our annual cyclocross race in Horsham, Carpenter Cross. It's a fantastic event. People come from all over the area just to race in Horsham, so it's very exciting to get new people out and experience Horsham and the great park system that we have here. We were very close to our numbers from our previous race, a little low, but we were very happy. We were blessed with another beautiful day. I know one of these days it's going to be a rainy mess, but that's what these racers like to race in, so we're not too worried about that. It was pretty interesting. This year we had a racer from Colorado that raced in our race, and he didn't come here just for that, but he was here for work, and he just had so many good things to say about the event and the course. I mean, everybody loves the course. We made a couple course changes this year, but it was fantastic. So thank you for letting us play bikes in Deep Meadow Park. And I'd like to present our check tonight to St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank, and it's for $2,000.
I think also Mr. Gallagher would like to say a few comments.
Yeah, and Dennis, I just want to say that I've seen this race, and I was so impressed by how much work is involved. And I would just like to sing my praises for the work that you and your group do in making this possible. And I'd also like to just ask, I hope that our volunteers from St. Vincent de Paul Society will give an example of how that money will be used by just saying a few words about just this one past weekend. So thank you, Dennis.
Patty, Steve, do you guys want to come up and say something?
You have no choice now. He put you on the spot.
Actually, to receive the check, you have to say something.
Watch your chords.
Well, this past weekend we gave out Thanksgiving meals to how many people? 60, 70 people. So we are able, we are helping out a lot of families in the area. On a normal week, I think there's 40 to 60 people come on a normal basis. Right. So that's every week. You know, we're open every week of the year, except for this year, Christmas and New Year's fall on a Saturday. But every Saturday we're open, and so by us getting these funds, we're able to buy food for the pantry. We help out people with some financial assistance. Sometimes they might need somewhere to stay for a few days or help with a bill or something like that. So our donors have been very generous to us. Since the pandemic, we've gotten an incredible amount of generosity from the community. It's been overwhelming. And every time we've asked for help, people step up. We've had the vestibule of the church overflowing with food. It's been amazing. Like when this first happened, we had so much food that we had the whole basement full of food. So we're so thankful for everybody's help, and that these checks, it just helps us to help so many more people. So thanks again, everybody.
Now everyone can split. So our next event, Freezer 5K, which is next month, help spread the word. Those proceeds also go to St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank for our local residents in need. So help spread the word of our Freezer 5K next month. We need runners for that. And we'll do a picture with council.
Good.
Okay, next item is to recognize Kramer Chiropractors, who've been here for 37 years.
37 years, and we like to take this opportunity to, recognize good businesses in town and good business owners that are in town. And Dr. John Kramer selected Horsham 37 years ago, and has stayed with Horsham ever since. He is from Hungary and came to the U.S. as a refugee. His parents and in-laws are both Holocaust survivors, and he chose Horsham. He's told me the story, and just in the back, that he chose Horsham when he first got his license because demographic information that he found out from Montgomery County, and that he was originally from New Jersey, but also didn't wanted to be sort of halfway or close by New Jersey, but not in Philadelphia. So based upon the demographic information he found out from Montgomery County, he chose Horsham, stood out as the township that was going to have a lot of growth in the future. So he stood by and picked Horsham and has stood by Horsham for 37 years, and we truly appreciate that. His wife Sylvia is here. She's also worked in the office for 33 years, and they've also raised 4 children. So we honor him tonight for being a business owner in Horsham for 37 years. And there's another part of this story which I'll allow someone else to speak of. But we are very fortunate, Dr. Kramer, to have you as a business owner in Horsham, and for you sticking with us for 37 years and hopefully many more years to come.
So I'd just like
Your mic.
to say a few
Is your
words.
mic on?
I'd like to say a few words. I met Dr. Kramer and his lovely wife Sylvia back on September 1st during Hurricane Ida, in which Dr. Kramer came out during the storm and rescued me and 2 other people, took us into their home, complete strangers we were, and kept us safe for the night. And during that time, I learned of the wonderful story of how he came to Horsham, and I just felt like Horsham should know about people like Dr. Kramer, and I am forever grateful for that choice encounter that we had, and we'll always be connected. So thank you again.
You're nice. It's a good story. So we do have a proclamation to give you tonight. It reads as follows. Horsham Chiropractic has been providing excellent care for residents of Montgomery and Bucks County since their opening in 1984. And Horsham Chiropractic specializes in treating chronic pain in patients of all ages. Dr. John Kramer offers individualized care, designing each patient's treatment plan to meet their specific health needs and goals. Dr. Kramer received his license from Pennsylvania College of Chiropractic in March of 1984 and opened the practice 5 months later under the name of Horsham Lower Back Center. Although the practice now has a new name, they have remained in the same location for the 37 years. Dr. Kramer and his team at Horsham Chiropractic are essential members of the Horsham Township community. We are honored to recognize them for over 37 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Horsham Township and the surrounding community, and we wish you many, many more years of success. Thank you very much for coming here tonight and accepting this proclamation. It's great to see people like yourselves hanging around in Horsham doing great work. Congratulations. Oh, you want to say a few words, or
Who, me? Do I have to do that?
you don't have to do? You can just wave and say thank you, and
We're all out of checks.
I'll say a very few words. First of all, it's a miraculous practice because I'm only 37 years old. So, but I have had a wonderful practice in Horsham. It's been just wonderful patients, and I have a wonderful staff. My wife Sylvia is here, who's our office manager, and Pam Boris is here, who's our insurance coordinator. We also have 2 massage therapists, neither of whom could make it tonight. But we are very grateful for this honor. Very, very kind. So thanks.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Kramer, if you can come up, we'll do a picture with council.
2, 3. Good.
All right, now to the fun part. Any comments or questions from the public? Yes, ma'am. Come on up to the mic if you would. Name and address for the records.
My name is Sean McLaughlin. I live at 1168 Limekiln Pike, and I'm a neighbor of the Toll Brother development that, I guess it borders Limekiln Pike, Davis Grove Road, and Park Road. I wanted to share some of my concerns regarding the disruptions that have been occurring over the last year while this huge construction site is developed. As I said, it's been over a year that they began building, and for about a year, we have felt and have had to endure over 100 explosions. These would be the blasting events, I guess, that they have. We've also had to, we've had our driveways blocked without notice, multiple occasions. Sometimes the blockages prevent us from entering or leaving our property for long periods of time. They have huge construction vehicles that emit sometimes sounds that are at dangerous decibels. Also, the most ceaseless disruption by far is the constant back up alarms that their trucks have. They begin at 7 in the morning and end at dark every day except Sundays. And then finally, and it's the ongoing work that is conducted before 7 a.m. They've been doing this for months. And it has been as recent as this morning. And I was woken up on Wednesday at 5:45 a.m. from the backup beepers. I was woken last Thursday at 6:30 from the backup beepers. I was woken by the sights and the sounds of construction vehicles at 4 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And my daughter told me yesterday morning around 3 o'clock she saw other construction vehicles. My question is, I understand that the township has had an agreement with Toll Brothers to restrict the hours in which they work. I guess I want to understand what the consequences are to them for breaking their promise, and if the township can do anything to prevent them from continuing this work outside of the times that they actually promised.
Okay, so I made a couple of notes here, so we'll just go down one by one. So Bill, for the blasting, was there a time frame that was given for the blasting?
Their initial blasting, as this project is a phased-in project, so their initial blasting, where we were hearing a lot of the complaints in the beginning, they gave us a time frame for that area, but that wasn't the end of all the blasting. That was the end for that area that they were in.
That was a date, right? There was a date set?
Yes, yep.
There was blasting last week.
Yeah, no, the blasting they have a state permit to continue blasting for the project. So.
Is there another date set, or is it just continuous now?
I don't know if there's another date set.
We can check on that, right?
We can.
So the second item was they're blocking your driveway. Have you called the township and complained? Have you said anything?
Well,
or-
I guess my question
I'm just curious
is
how
that
we
what I
can-
need to do? Is that what we need to do if they violate their, it's my understanding that they're not required to do much, and the only thing I thought they were required to do was to adhere to the terms of the agreement that they had with the township with regards to working before 7 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I imagine blocking people's driveways is probably not in the agreement, but it's probably understood, you know.
Well, I actually addressed it with one of the Toll Brothers people and and questioned whether or not that was a neighborly thing to do, and he said he wasn't required to give us any notice.
Block your driveway.
Correct.
That was probably, I guess, the Pico, the gas line that they were putting in up, down Line
I have no idea what it was, but it was John Deemer that I spoke with.
Yeah, he's from Toll. He's Toll, with Toll Brothers. Yeah.
Bill, perhaps you could just follow up on that just to find out if that's going to continue or if there's anything they could do to prevent that. Loud trucks, equipment, backup noises, I guess that all goes into kind of hand in hand with the starting too early.
Well, it's
And some of it
it's
is
all day, every
during the
day,
day,
except
but-
Sundays. And so,
Right.
yeah, and then in addition, we have the times where I guess they were promised not to do it, but they are doing it anyway.
Right. So, I mean, I understand the backup, they have those beepers that go off when they're backing up, and I don't know if there's much we can do about that. The timeframe, so, there is a start date, a start time for this, right?
At 7 a.m.
And if they're starting earlier than that, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, we can send the thing that we'd have to do, and I know our offices don't open till 8:30, but as soon as 8:30 hits, call code enforcement, and code enforcement can send someone out to the site.
I guess my question is, it was at a prior township meeting where I was told that there was an agreement that they signed, is this correct? With Toll, where they promised, because there are no ordinances, I think, in this township with regards to noise.
I'll let Mary
Hi,
address that.
Sean. I'm
Hi,
right
Mary,
behind you.
sorry, I don't mean to talk to you
No, that you have
back.
no choice. There is a development agreement that they signed that talks about things like hours of operation. Blocking your driveway, that's a vehicle code thing, that's not in the development agreement. Hours of operation is keeping the property clean there are provisions for notifying people when there's going to be blasts. They're in the development agreement. If they do not comply with the development agreement, we can send them notice that they're in default. There's nothing that you're suggesting right now by itself that would be a material default where we could shut down the site, but an accumulation of them not fixing these mistakes after we make them aware of over time would be a material
Well,
default.
waking us up in the middle of the night, is that acceptable?
No, it's not acceptable,
Okay.
and of course, we would notify them that they're in breach of
Do
the
they not know
development.
they're in breach? That's the part I don't understand. They made a promise, I thought, that they wouldn't do this, so they are willfully defying whatever promises they made to you.
We'll talk to them about it. I don't want to categorize it as like willful or they're doing it, they shouldn't be doing it. It is, they're operating or building a development in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and they have to be respectful of that. And so the township will definitely work with you to try and make that
Thank you,
happen.
I appreciate that a lot. And I guess the last question I had was, when is it going to end? How much longer do we have to bear the burden of this development on our, I guess,
Actually,
our quality of life?
I think, Sean, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think when we met with Toll Brothers, after the initial blasting problems that you experienced, and we sat down and talked to them and went over the procedures to make sure that you got notice, and when are they blasting, and blasting under low cloud cover makes things worse, and trying to talk to them not to do it. They said that they're working on the project closest to you first. And so, while the project might go on for a 7-year period, they should be done with yours within a year or two.
I would think so, yes.
So you mean a year or two from now, or a year or two from the time they started, which was a year ago?
Year or two from now.
Oh, okay, so maybe 3 more, a total of 3 years. Let's beep for I can expect, okay. Thank you.
I would just say if the noise part the starting before 7 a.m. If that continues, just document it so that when you do contact us, you can document.
I have documented it.
Okay,
so-
I kind of figured you might. Just so when they go in to talk to toll, they can know what days and times, and it helps the cause.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Next item is the Myria presentation. Who wants to start?
Excuse me, I guess I'll start. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, Gad, I'm sorry. Something else.
Okay. As you probably are aware, the Myria has a primary responsibility of addressing PFAS contamination. But one of our secondary responsibilities is to invest in transportation infrastructure or other economic development activities to promote the economic development of the former Willow Grove Naval Air Station. And so, as a part of that undertaking, the Myria last year funded a traffic or transportation study of the road network around the Willow Grove Naval Air Station to really help better inform us as to what the priorities ought to be in terms of funding that infrastructure and addressing those critical needs. We wanted to be sure to share this with Horsham Council and the HLRA because obviously all three groups need to work hand in hand, as we have been over the last year, to ensure that the economic development of the Willow Grove Naval Air Station, ultimately, whenever that will really come to fruition, does so in a manner that doesn't severely impact or hamper the road networks that we have moving through the township. So we really appreciate the opportunity to be here and we're going to hear this presentation for the first time from Michael Baker as well. And so we're excited to hear it and join with you in better understanding what we need to be focused on to deal with transportation and traffic issues here in Horsham Township as we move forward with that redevelopment. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I don't know if our treasurer, Terry, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I think so.
No problem. So we do have Eric Ferrari here from Michael Baker, who I know you're all familiar with, and he will be guiding us through the presentation.
Okay. If anybody has any questions, as we just wait till the end, and then we can go back and ask questions.
So I'm going to apologize to Mary in advance because I'm going to be my back to be the whole time. So I want to thank all three bodies for allowing me the opportunity tonight to present the findings of the study in draft form. There's still some comments to respond to once you get a chance to read the report in detail. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. It's a high-level overview of the study, understanding you need some time to read it in detail. But really, the intent was always to present it to all three bodies. I think the original intent was to present it to the Myria board first, and then eventually to council and the HLRA. I think the tornadoes and other things got in the way, so this is kind of the first opportunity to present the findings. So with Bill driving, just as Tom mentioned, I think the study was funded end of last year, but really didn't get started until March of this year. And really, it's a compilation of two separate studies, one being the 611 corridor study that PennDOT initiated in 2015, which really looked at not just the 611 corridor, but the entire area. They included County Line Road and Horsham Road, and incidentally, surrounding the naval base. And this was on the heels of the passage of Act 89, and Todd was instrumental in getting that study funded as well. But at that time, the status of the base was still in flux. So the study specifically, to some degree, ignored the Navy base. So PennDOT wanted to make sure that we could look at the impact of traffic generated by the base. So that study looked at a regional perspective. The second study that I'll refer to is the EIS for the base itself, which really just looked at the traffic impacts specifically to the intersections in and around the base. So between those two, there's really no comprehensive look at the whole road network in and around the base, including the interior network of the base itself once it does get developed. So there was several tasks we looked at. It's really a traffic-driven study, but at the end, when you see the report, there's a lot of planning that goes into it in terms of what the road network, both the surrounding network as well as the interior network could look like, some rough costs. And then what I really want to do is get some feedback from you folks on terms of setting priorities, what the next steps are, how we can kind of accelerate some of this infrastructure that's really going to be needed to support the basin itself, and then really at what point. So with that said, we can kind of get into it. So this is kind of, again, high-level executive summary, but really wanted to focus on really the two major corridors that really support the base, and that's Horsham Road and County Line Road, and we're all familiar with those. But when you look at some of the other corridors in and around it, you have Blair Mill Road, you have the Norristown Road corridor. We'll talk about the Hankin property later on, but in terms of what that could do in terms of benefits to the base. But when you add it all up, it's roughly a $100 million investment in road infrastructure to support the base. Now let me put a caveat on that number. One, it's based on today's dollars, so it would need to be escalated over time depending on when things are built. It ignores really right-of-way and utilities because we don't have enough information to estimate that. So this is truly just a construction estimate in today's dollars. But either way, you can see it's a significant investment in infrastructure. And we're going to touch on each of the major corridors in a little bit more detail. But it really looked at not just intersections, but also corridor widening, as well as secondary transportation improvements, sidewalks, bike lanes, trails, things that really want to make sure that the base itself is developed in a way that we as Horsham residents want it to do, and really connect the infrastructure of the township. I know you can't really see this in detail, but the point of this is looking at the traffic analysis of the intersections in and around the base. So the study looked at roughly 25 different intersections in and around the base, again, primarily on Horsham Road and County Line Road and some of the other networks. So the one thing I want to emphasize in this, when you look at the traffic analysis, is a lot of the intersections that we know are congested now, one will get worse over time. Most likely will get worse with the base, and with some of the improvements we are proposing, will get better. Now, the one thing to emphasize is we're looking at a 25-year horizon. So the time period for this study was 2040. So at the time of the 611 study in the EIS, that was a 25-year horizon. We're roughly at, 20 years plus or minus. I know it was 19 now. But it's a 20 to 25-year horizon, which is consistent with the county's kind of horizon for their master plan. The other thing I'll point out is, there are also some intersections that even with all this improvement may not get better. One, for example, would be Horsham and Drescher. It's an intersection, it's constrained. It really doesn't have any opportunity for improvement, so that's not going to get any better. It won't get much worse, but it really won't get much better. And then lastly, Horsham Road, as we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, is really expected to be the major corridor that will be the access point for the base. 611 is certainly going to be part of that, but as far as seeing an increase in traffic, it's Horsham Road. And we'll touch on what that means for Horsham Road. Some general critical assumptions in terms of the study. Excuse me. We are suggesting, or we assume that all intersections would be upgraded with the new kind of protected phase, prohibited phase format that PennDOT likes, as well as the ornamental signal poles that we're starting to see throughout the township. So there's some consistency there. As I mentioned, the walkability of this I think is critically important. So with the exception of 611, we assume that there's going to be sidewalks everywhere, bike lanes certainly on the interior part of the Navy base development, as well as, although not estimated, some considerations for how to connect the power line trail and some of the neighborhoods to the east of 611, so through the base and across some of these major road networks. I'm sorry, can you back up a little quick? Again, just some general assumptions. Full depth reconstruction where we're widening, but otherwise a mill and overlay. And again, just to kind of quantify the cost a little bit. Added in the contingencies for some of the soft costs, the engineering, the construction inspection. And then, as I think I mentioned, right away and utilities. Again, we just don't have any good handle on what that's going to cost, so we kind of ignore that. But we know it can be significant depending on right away acquisition. So when you look at, the major corridors, let's talk about Horsham Road first. As I mentioned, you're looking at a 30 to 40% increase in total intersection volume between the no build and the full build scenario. So the full build being, the 2040 horizon with everything in place. Now understand that that's on top of or includes 20 to 30% normal growth. So if the base was going to happen, you would still see 20 to 30% growth in traffic along that corridor, just through time and just natural growth within the region. A lot of the intersection degradation that we saw in the study is obviously due to access points to the base. So in some cases, we're adding signalized intersections where you currently don't have one, whether it be privet or precision, which again, when you look at those locations, right now it's a free access, no signalized intersection. It will be signalized, so that causes some degradation to the intersection. As far as general assumptions, excuse me, corridor widening to go to 5 lanes. So the ideal for Horsham Road would be to have a consistent 5-lane section, essentially from 611 all the way up to what will be a 5-lane section at Davis Grove with the Horsham Road widening project that we'll talk about later on tonight, which would thereby require the widening of the Park Creek Bridge. So that's part of that. We talked about the new site access points at Privet, Precision, and Norristown. And all the site access points are essentially what has been proposed in the EIS. So none of this is a deviation from the EIS, but really just looking at from a little more holistic traffic perspective, what the impacts would be and what the kind of traffic volumes that we would see at those locations. Maple Avenue is going to be, I wouldn't say closed, but modified significantly so that we shift traffic to the Norristown Road, which would be one of the primary access points to the base. Maple Avenue would still need to be open to service some of the properties on Maple Avenue, but may not extend all the way to 611. As I mentioned, Norristown Road being probably the primary access point, and I say that because we can control that to some degree. Norristown Road is a state road. If you take a step back, it connects, Horsham to Maple Glen, the Spring House, and it's really a regional corridor that really can drive and support these little towns that are popping up along Norristown Road and also Somebodytown Pike as it turns into near Spring House. And with that, we're going to need significant access to the base via Norristown Road. So with that, we propose dual lefts at Norristown Road just to support that interest in those turn movements at the location. And then lastly, in terms of Horsham Road, what we saw with the pure interest and volume on Horsham Road, there may be a need in the future. We didn't really plan it this way, but for a 3rd lane northbound. So that would be the northbound lane adjacent to the base, and really just facilitate those movements on the northbound side, getting access to the base. So that could be something for planning purposes. Maybe make sure you have the right of way, but maybe not build it right away until you actually see there's a need for that 3rd lane. Because I think, as a resident, I don't want to see Horsham Road turn into 611. I want Horsham Road to stay as a somewhat, quiet 5-lane section, but, you got to be careful not to let it get too big because then it's just going to attract more traffic. So that's Horsham Road. Next one is the Easter Road 611 corridor. We've talked about 611 in the past. Really got to look at expanding 611 to 6 or 7 lanes. Really just adding capacity. Again, it's going to continue to grow. The 6 or 7 lane concept is really looking at, do we need a center turn lane? Do we want a center turn lane? Could be better to go with 6 lanes with maybe a median or a barrier just to prevent those somewhat dangerous center turn lanes. Obviously, we would allow access those left turn lanes where needed into the base, but really want to restrict a kind of a free left turn along 611 for safety purposes. Those of you who drive it, it's heavily traveled, it's fast, it's unsafe in a lot of areas. So we've got to be careful to make sure we maintain some safety aspects. New site access points at Maple Avenue, which would be the Norristown Extension location, Westmoreland, which would connect with Precision, and then the main, what we'll call the main gate of the base itself, which would be where Privet extends to. We would eliminate the signal at Maple Avenue and the Maple Hill Apartments, and add that signal to the Westmoreland and the site access, which is where precision would extend to. We talked about the Hankin Road connector. I know that's a concept as part of the development. We did look at that in terms of the traffic analysis. I think it's still a good idea to have that connector to connect 611 to County Line Road at the location. It has nominal benefit to the County Line Road and 611 intersection, primarily because you're only eliminating essentially one movement at that intersection, would be the left turns from County Line to 611. But it's still a worthwhile consideration. Plus, it would connect with one of the crossroads. So you could actually get from Horsham Road to County Line from, I think it's Privet, which would go all the way across. So again, I think there's some value there. We talked about the center turn lane of 611. And the thing about 611, maybe it's different than Horsham Road, is about half of the investment is in actually widening of 611. So it's basically building out 611 to 6 lanes of throughput. And again, the concept of the center turn lane and the median would be something to consider. So those are the two major corridors and a large part of the investment. Next slide. The other corridors that are maybe secondary but just as important, the Blair Mill Road is already a corridor that's being widened and improved to connect 611 and Welsh Road. Potential for a turnpike interchange that we've talked about. Obviously Blair Mill Road will become key to that. Really, with the project that's ongoing now, we'll touch on that a little bit later, there's going to be the kind of the third phase, which would be to continue the widening from essentially Whitmer to the Walmart entrance, I'll call it that, which is where the 5-lane section starts before you get to Welsh Road. Norristown Road, as I mentioned, will evolve into a major county regional corridor. The concern, the issue with Norristown Road is it just doesn't have the width to expand. For those of you who drive it frequently, it's tight. There's residential properties on a lot of places. So how do we get capacity out of Norristown Road without really disrupting the feel of Norristown Road as it exists today? The offset intersection of Herman and Whitmer is and will continue to be the issue. So there are some things that can be done to improve that situation, some minor widening, some lane configuration just to get that throughput a little bit more efficiently. But without a major investment in widening and disrupting a lot of homes, you may not be able to do much more for Norristown Road. So when you look at, so those are really the exterior roads. We looked at the interior roads, and I understand that that may or may not be part of the developer's plan and what that means. But we did want to look at it because, one, for planning purposes and make sure the traffic flow is consistent. These crossroads are critically important to Horsham Township. So it gets the flow of traffic from Horsham Road to 611 instead of going all the way down to Maple. Some of our critical assumptions for the interior road network. So we assumed the 5-lane section for the Norristown Road extension. And I'm using the word spine road because we really lacked any other term for the kind of the major, whether you call it the runway road or whatever you want to call it, but we'll call it the spine road for now. We mentioned Norristown Road, because of the type of road of Norristown, which is a state road, extending that through the base to connect with 611 is going to need capacity to handle that volume. So we assume that it would be a 5-lane section. Again, we talked about the landscape medians, bike lanes, sidewalks for walkability. Again, we're starting with a clean slate. So there's a lot of things you can do in terms of planning and engineering to make the interior road network really look nice, tied in with the base itself. Another thing that you may or may not like, but I think it's an opportunity, is to add roundabouts rather than signalized intersections. So the entire base development could be void of signalized intersections outside of the perimeter road network. So you have opportunities to introduce modern roundabouts and unsignalized intersections that could really add to the feel of the base. They're landscape medians. They are beautifully accented. It makes traffic flow much better. So again, it's more of an opportunity. It really didn't change the traffic analysis, but these are kind of planning discussions that to be considered by kind of whoever's going to be doing the next phase of the project. So we provided this table just to show that, one, you're looking at almost 40 million in infrastructure investment just within the base itself. But the reason we broke it out into this level of detail is there could be an opportunity to advance certain features of the interior and the road network, well in advance of the base. So maybe it's something the township or the Myria board wants to advance, before the base even kicks off. And I'll use the example of Norristown Road. Norristown Road would have the benefit of connecting Horsham to 611. It would provide immediate benefit to the traveling public now, while the rest of the base continues to evolve. So there's detail in the study to look at what intersections and components of the interior road network could actually be advanced today versus tomorrow. So that was really the extent of it. Some other things to consider for planning purposes. We talked about the power line trail and the need to connect the neighborhoods, say to the east of 611, to the power line trail, be it privet. So how do you get them across 611 safely? So that was some feedback we got from the Myria board in earlier presentations, that there may be a need for a pedestrian bridge to cross 611, for example. Especially if 611 goes to 6 or 7 lanes, there's going to be a need to make that connection. So we didn't really look at in detail where it could be and what it would look like, but it's definitely a planning detail to consider for the future. As well as internal trail trail locations, again, to get from 611 or across 611 to privet, which basically get you access to the power line trail. Some minor details, but just as important, is the naming and ownership of some of these east-west connectors. So we talked about Privet Road Extension, Precision Road Extension, Norristown Road Extension. The first two are township roads, if I'm not mistaken. Norristown Road is a state road. So what do you want to call them? Who's going to own them? So there's things to think about in terms of future advancement and development. We talked about the naming and ownership of the Spine Road. And again, I think there's an opportunity here to call it something unique, make it look like it's a piece of culture, part of this culture in the township. It could really look like a really nice feature of the base as well as the township. And we talked about the roundabouts. I think it's a tremendous opportunity to do something unique in Horsham that maybe nowhere else in this area has seen. So again, something to think about for future planning. So when you look at next steps, so a couple things for setting priorities for discussion purposes. Overall cost of the improvement and the ability to secure funding. So that's where if you wanted to advance certain features, who's paying for it, how could it advance, who's going to advance it. We talked about right-of-way impacts and the length of time to require, or length of time required to complete construction. So that gets into the timing and phasing. Right-of-way, as we know, takes an extraordinary amount of time to clear. So you need to take that into consideration when you want to advance certain projects. Really, the short-term and long-term benefit and return on investment on anything you want to advance. So again, as opposed to the developer doing it all, is there a value in advancing certain components of this? And what's the benefit of that if you want to take that on? We talked about a couple times, who's the lead entity in the planning, the programming, the implementation. So is it going to be PennDOT, the township, Myria, the developer? So all these need to be considered depending on what we're advancing and when and how it's being paid for. So again, just something to think about. And then we talked about the timing and sequence relative to other planning improvements. So I know it's a lot to take in all at once, but these are all things to consider as far as next steps when we start to plan out the next 20 years in terms of infrastructure. We're talking about infrastructure a lot these days. So we have a federal bill in place. There's money going to be flowing to PennDOT and to local. So I think there's a unique opportunity to take advantage of this funding opportunity to advance some of these projects well in advance of the development. So next steps, and then we'll open up to questions. So we're here today presenting the draft report to council and the Myria board and LRA. Really want your feedback. So I know either just got it or haven't had a chance to digest this in whole, but really I want your feedback, I want your comments. This is your report, your study. I'll be looking for comments and really want to address those comments and issue a final report, which I guess would be presented to the board and adopted by the board in some formal fashion, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of up to you how you want to handle next steps. And then really have a discussion on, what's the next steps in terms of planning and programming for any of this infrastructure that we have in place. So I know I went through this pretty quickly and it's a high-level overview, but in the interest of time, I did want to present the executive summary and open up to any questions that anybody have.
So, real quick, I think you touched on it, that it would be prudent for us to be able to plan and perhaps initiate and construct certain things ahead of time.
Yeah, I think,
So the question is,
yes.
would it then be prudent to come up with a list of the most important things that should be done, that we can do ahead of time, and then put a cost to it, and then figure out how we're going to, who's going to pay for it, and how we're going to pay for it.
Right, so I stopped short of making those recommendations. So the data and the details are there. So, my personal opinion is Horsham Road is the key to all this. I mean, that's going to be the driver. That's where it probably needs a lot of the improvement. I think second to that would be if there's an opportunity to provide in advance a connector, like a Norristown Road connector. And again, we made the assumption that Norristown Road is the primary connector to the base. We could decide it's prohibitive precision. And I think that the traffic flow you have the ability to dictate where people go. So through signage, through size of facilities, again, we made the assumption that Norristown Road seems like the obvious choice. But if you wanted to make precision or privet as the primary cut across, then we would sign it and design it accordingly so that that's the flow of traffic. So there's still some decisions to be made to answer your specific question, but in my opinion, Horsham Road would be one. Make sure you eliminate the drop lanes at Babylon, so continue the 5-lane section from Babylon up to Davis Grove would be one. And then look at, is there an opportunity and value in providing one of those east-west connectors in advance?
So one of the things that was mentioned was you just got done talking about it again, was the connector between the Norristown Road and 611. Mike, I don't know if you want to touch on that as to where we stand, if we stand anywhere with getting that, even though the base is we're not there yet.
And on.
So we're not certainly there at this point. But I agree that I think Norristown Road is clearly the through road, the first through road that should be put in place. And obviously and we have discussed that with the Navy, and they are supportive of roads being constructed prior to the property being totally turned over. The details, there's always the devil's in the details. And of course, at this point, the Navy is rather aggressively trying to get EPA and DEP to make decisions. And that's what we really lack, is decisions from the regulators and what we can and can't do and where we can do it. But I think our priority really should be Norristown Road, cutting through. And oh, by the way, although for years I was not a Circle fan, but they first changed the name, so that makes it so much better. But no, seriously, I have come to appreciate the value of the Circle, especially when we're trying to redevelop inside the base and create not just another traffic light, but create an island of interest and actually slow traffic down at the same time. And I have had an opportunity to read the entire report, and I do want to congratulate you. And I think it was a very good first step and something that was absolutely needed to be done. Now what we absolutely need to have done is have the Navy be able to transfer the property. And it certainly isn't the Navy that's holding it up. They're anxious to get out of town. and they spent millions and millions of dollars trying to get EPA and DEP to come to an agreement. So the sooner that happens, the better we can get moving forward. I do have a number of comments that I won't bore everybody with at this point, but I'd like to get together with you in the future. And I'm just so looking forward to us getting something done with this eyesore of the base sitting there. And I think this, and thanks to Mary and thanks to Todd, who has made this all possible, and looking forward to working with the Navy and hopefully getting some traffic improvements done and the future.
So Todd, I guess I'm going to assume you're going to agree with all this. I mean, as far as the MIRI is concerned, the idea of putting together the top 10 list, so to speak, and then agreeing on what should be on that list, and then the funding, of course, would follow, and you guys have continue to be a big part of that. I guess would you agree with Mike's thoughts, my thoughts as to the importance of the base, the road going through the base is number one, or is there other things that you guys would have in mind that, as far as improvements go beforehand, that we could do?
So I think, I can only speak for myself. I haven't discussed this with the other members of the board, although there's, I guess, 4 of us in the room. So, in general, that's why I thought it was important to commission this study, so that we could be guided by, the information that's contained within it. And so, I mean, I agree. One of the things that I've maintained from a personal standpoint was that the base should provide the people of Horsham an opportunity to improve our traffic and transportation network. And I think that's what this gets to. When you start, I happen to live off Norristown Road, so the age-old example I give is when I'm trying to figure out, when I'm going to the Regal movie theater, the first, decision point is, am I going to go clockwise around the base or counterclockwise around the base to get there? That's something that I think we have a great opportunity to improve the transportation network here in Horsham. And, I know a lot of folks were concerned about, the redevelopment there adding to traffic, but I really view it as an opportunity, especially if we look at it, as we are now, carefully and prudently. I think we can actually improve our situation and put ourselves in a good spot for when that development comes. One of the things we did as a board, we chose to move forward with acquiring Grandma's Grotto, anticipating that improvements were going to be needed to Moreland Avenue and 611, understanding that is one of the access points that was contemplated in the redevelopment plan. So it's nice now to be able to have, some ballpark figures in terms of these different access points. And as we go through our funding calendar, we can, certainly be mindful of those different opportunities. I did have one quick question, if I could. It was on, I don't know if you could pull up slide 10. And I like Mr. McGee, I would like to spend a little bit more time digging in here and probably meet with you as well. But I just have a question. As it relates to the Norristown Road extension from Horsham Road to the Spine Road and then from the Spine Road to Easton Road. So am I to understand that, in essence, the figures that you had on the Norristown corridor slide that indicated improvements at Norristown and Horsham Road, and then the improvements on the Easton Road slide for the intersection of Maple Avenue and Easton Road, added together with that $2.4 million for each of those, would be the collective amount to really run Norristown Road through the base and connect with Maple Avenue on the other side. Is that, I'm reading that right correctly?
Okay. To do the math for you, you're looking at almost $10 million to build the Norristown Road extension.
So it's 5 million, check. Okay, 5 million on the base roughly, and then 5 million off the base. Is that okay? All right, so it's about $10 million to do that. Then, if there are any land acquisition costs, although I think Mr. McGee is working on ensuring that doesn't happen, right? So there might be some additional costs, above that, but that's a good starting point for the discussion. So I think these types of analyses are really helpful for our board as we, look at future funding or future improvements.
I'll say, it's a kind of disjointed way of looking at it. I get that because the way we looked at this originally, just from the intersection perspective. So we can actually do an exhibit just for Norristown Road, so it's a little bit clearer to everybody, because right now it's again, disjointed in 2 or 3 different exhibits, so that'd be easy enough to do a quick exhibit, and then we can come up with maybe a more defined cost estimate, if that's what you wanted to move forward with.
Having it broken out this way is really helpful from our standpoint, because the fact of the matter is, to find $10 million is a lot harder than it is to find, $2.5 million somewhere.
Why we did it this way, it was kind of a menu of options, so if you want to do an intersection versus a whole corridor, you can kind of pick and choose.
Great. All right, thank you. I would just comment that we have issues obviously going across the Norristown Road, not the least of which is the landfill. And we hopefully will be able to work with the Navy and alter some of their plans for that landfill and make it much more feasible to move through that. So I think one of the, before we invest too much money in that exact plan and or portion of that road, I think we need to find out the metes and bounds of what the landfill will actually be at the end of the day. Agreed.
Yeah, I was aware of that and didn't want to turn this into an engineering study and kept it as a traffic, but yeah, there's some geometric issues as well as the landfill to avoid once you get onto the base with Norristown Road.
If I could can I just jump in at this point? This is really beneficial, but for those of us who've been here for a long time, we've seen plans that predate. I'll never forget when we were sitting in the old building, and I don't know if it was Catalyst or somebody gave us a plan of 150 pages that said there's over $100 million, and it might have been bigger than $100 million of off-site improvements that need to be done. And at the time, I'm like, holy cow, where's a town like Horsham going to come up with that kind of money? And unfortunately, it's become so much more protracted in terms of reaching even the starting point than we ever predicted. This was 10 years ago. But the one thing that you can't see here is that in the last 10 years, we have picked and taken care of a lot of those little intersections, not at the pace we wanted to, but like the Drescher Road, the intersection of Horsham and Drescher Road, we have, in each time there's been a development, we've looked for ways to partner, a public-private partnership, to get some of these things done. It hasn't moved as fast as we wanted, but these kind of plans are really beneficial when you get, like, the Hankin property. The connector road was a huge part of that, and that's going to be, if we're talking timelines, if that happens, it puts us in another position to, once that comes in, to be able to start to see, where the traffic's flowing. Like you can draw lines all over the place, but you don't really understand how it's going to work until you get the roads in and you start to flow. So that, all of this is coming together, and this will be great from the standpoint, I'm assuming there's going to be a map that's going to, at some point, there'll be a map that will show us kind of where 15.1, 16.2 might generally be, so that when we're seeing land developments that come before us or other council, they can look at this and say, oh, okay, well, we want to see what we can work through, where the right-of-way is going to be, where this intersection is going to be. Because this gives us a much better forward look, particularly with Norristown Road.
Yep.
We're always, in 611, the corridor, we're always looking for opportunities, whether it was at 611 in Blair Mill, with the redevelopment and closure of New Road. That's another,
Yep.
We could talk for a long time about all the little micro steps we've taken along the way, and there's still so many more. And I think the most exciting thing is even the potential of some advanced infrastructure development of the base in advance of a land transfer. If that could happen, where we could start to, because Norristown Road is going to be the gateway. If that's the east-west, that Norristown Road entrance from the Horsham Road side, I'm assuming is going to always be would be one of the gateways into the base. And if you could put not the only one, but if you could put that spine road in, that's going to alleviate your traffic off of 611 and Horsham Road. Because, like you said, you're always trying to figure out ways to get around the base. So, that's why Obviously, if we can get, the EPA and the state, but more so the EPA, to move on the cleanup requirements, that would release this logjam. And I know that's what Mike's talking about. But recently, it seems like there's some news that are moving in the positive direction. But the one thing I wanted to add, and I'm sorry, I'm taking too much time. Back then, Mike, when we looked at it, we're like, where the heck are we going to get this money? We're never going to, we have our reserve fund, but we're never going to have the money of $100 million. And what's happened now that we haven't ever had before is the funding opportunities with Myria, the grant money that Todd's been great in getting, and all our state delegate have been great in getting. And so you want to do this with other people's money, and now that we actually have a funding opportunity instead of just a wish list, we have an opportunity like, Grandma's Grotto. That's going to fix a really dangerous intersection. So there's a lot to be excited about with this, because I've seen a lot of plans over the years that just don't seem to get somewhere.
And a lot of I haven't read through the details yet, but a lot of the Biden infrastructure bill, is providing funding through grants.
Right.
A lot is dedicated
to
traditional, PennDOT, highway and bridge program, but there's a lot of grants out there too. So I think that would be part of the next steps, is look at grant opportunities, both state and federal, to fund this.
Considering the feds polluted it, they should give us extra money on the infrastructure bill.
Agreed.
Just real quick, clarify the connector road is between Norristown and Moreland, or Norristown and Maple?
When you say connector road, which
He's asking on
Norristown
what side
through
of
the base.
where does it?
Where's it
where's
connect on 611? At Moreland or at Maple?
Maybe.
at
Precision goes to Moreland,
Right, yeah.
and Norristown goes to Maple.
so there's three, and Norristown is the southernmost of the
Right.
east-west connectors.
Gotcha.
And then Privet goes to Vantage.
Right.
Anybody else? Bill, do you want to chime in from the township standpoint? I could talk for hours about transportation, so I will hold my, I have my list of 10 priorities for you.
So you do have a list too then, good.
Yes.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I have a few, but the one that seems relevant to the discussion here is Norristown. You talked about the connector between Horsham Road and the Eastern Road Corridor. That area between Welsh and Horsham Road leading into the connector, I think you talked about it earlier. I mean, that sounds like a nightmare to try to work on land acquisition to widen that area. That's one lane right now. So you're talking a lot of a high price tag just to acquire the land to do that widening. Is that factored in on slide 3, I guess it is?
It's really not, because all we're looking at is, and I think it's the graphic that showed the Whitmer offset intersection. We really just squeezed in just minor improvements to get better lane configurations. I think we're still missing a left turn lane on one of the approaches. So yeah, there's really no major acquisition to make that happen. And again, I agree. I don't know how you fix Norristown Road. I mean, to make it what it probably needs to be, you're looking at a 4-lane section, maybe 5, but there's no ability to expand that, not in my lifetime. Nor do I think you want to, disrupt your constituents to do that. But it's a tough fix. I mean, otherwise it would have been fixed a long time ago. And that offset intersection is not close enough that you can fix that as well. So I think that's one where we just kind of have to do the best we can and see how it goes.
And that project, again, Welsh to Horsham, that wouldn't be eligible under Myria, would it? Because it's really not adjacent to the base. Does that make sense?
Actually, the Myria statute reads that the money can be used for traffic improvements to facilitate the economic development or the development of the base. There's no requirement for that they be adjacent. There's a requirement that they be within the township.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions up here? Anybody down below?
know it's been a lot to take in tonight, because again, it's the first time seeing it, and there's probably be 1,000 questions when I go home.
I think
You
we
know,
can
and I'm
talk
sure you
about
guys have a
next
lot
steps,
to talk about as well, and, you know, but I know that, I think everyone's in agreement that we have to move forward and create the next steps.
Yes, I'll defer to Todd and the mayor board on the next steps in terms of getting together to review or comments and make some final edits, but I'm anxious to have the conversation with Mr. McGee.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank you
guys
for your
for coming down tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Now we have more traffic to talk about. So, Bill, we have a transportation update?
Yep, Mr. Matthew Edmond is here from the Montgomery County Planning Commission to provide you a Horsham area transportation update.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Should I sit here?
That's fine, just make sure your mic's on and you're speaking into it.
All right. Mic should be on. I see the green light going. I'll sit here. The cameras will have my back, but it beats
Got one here, don't worry
turning
about
my
it.
back to the solicitor.
There's a
So,
camera here.
cameras are
All over the place.
cameras everywhere. All
That's
right,
right.
good.
We don't miss a trick.
Professional production. I like it. Well, good evening, Horsham Township Council. Thank you for having me back again. My name is Matthew Edmond. I'm the Assistant Director of Transportation and Long Range Planning here at the Planning Commission. And let's see, who's running this slideshow? Is it Irk or is it Dennis?
Strike two, it's
Or Bill's
over here.
Man, too many gentlemen with computers. I'm not sure who's running what. So, Bill, thank you for advancing the slide. I'm going to very quickly go through 4 quick topics for you tonight, Council. These are things that are happening in and around your township. If you have questions about some other stuff that maybe I didn't cover, happy to answer it. But I'm just going to kind of go quick hit through a couple of things here. Just frame some policy and project issues for everyone here tonight. So the first one is the turnpike interchanges. Bill, if you go, thank you. This was actually just announced on Friday. Governor Wolf announced that the Commonwealth Financing Authority released its latest round of winners for their DCD CFA Multimodal Transportation Fund. And so Montgomery County got about $7.2 million worth of projects out of it. It's about maybe 9 or 10 communities got something, and Upper Moreland was one of them. They put in for $1.65 million from that fund, which was the round that was open last year. So they're always well behind. This was the one that, actually no, it was opened this year, and then they announced it in the fall. So they submitted for it maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and they got it. So they got $1.65 million or so to start the design of improvements to the Willow Grove interchange. So they're handling that. The match is on them. It's only design, though. There's no money identified for improvements. But what they want to do is add a additional southbound lane on 611 that then carries through the cloverleaf that goes down to the right and then underneath 611 and then over to the interchange toll plaza there on the left side of that picture. So we're going to see where that goes. It's just like I said, just engineering. The construction is not funded, but that is one of the pinch points on 611 coming out of Horsham. So even though it's not in your township, it still is very important to your township. And it's another effort like the ones that you guys have been undertaking on Blair Mill Road, for instance, Commerce and Whitmer, ways to invest in your own transportation system and not wait for PennDOT or someone else to do it for you. So it all kind of fits in like a puzzle. And so that's some good news and some new news. Next, Bill. Now, this is one of the few projects left in the TIP, the Region's Transportation Improvement Program, that is in or within Horsham's boundaries. This is the County Line Road 3R project. So those of you guys who may not know, the TIP is basically the capital budget for federal and state transportation dollars. If you want to program federal or state transportation money onto a road that is either yours or that PennDOT owns or is within your township, it's got to go through the TIP. There's a couple other things it has to go through first, but most importantly, it's got to be in this document, the TIP. You can find it online. DVRPC, which is our regional planning body, they put that together every 2 years with PennDOT's help and the counties, and that's us. But anyway, this is a project that had been in there for a number of years. And so it's happening right now, but you're not seeing a whole lot of it. So that picture up on the screen there, that was taken right around Keith Valley Road, a little bit, I think, to the east. And I took that picture there over the weekend because it shows you what they've been up to. So PennDOT let this thing early this year, but there's no contractor out there doing anything because the first thing that has to happen is the utilities need to be moved. So that's what you see on the picture there. On the right are the old utility poles, or what's left of them. And on the left are the new utility poles. So Verizon, Pico, they're out there, they're moving poles and doing a lot of the pre-construction work that you need so that when the contractor shows up, they can just go through and repave and widen and do what they need to do. That is going to start happening, PennDOT tells me, late spring of next year, late spring, early summer. So we're probably looking May or June. That's the latest that PennDOT has for actually all that utility work being done and the contractor showing up. But just to remind you guys, basically they're going to be rebuilding the entire roadway from the ground up. They're going to be widening it slightly, basically adding shoulders. So 5, 11, 11, 5, that represents the lanes that you'll see out there along the whole corridor. And yeah, like I said, it's happening, but it's just happening slowly. And it's supposed to wrap up at this point in 2026. And that seems like a long time out, and it is a long time out. Utilities are a big reason for that. But just to give you guys a sense of context, that's exactly what's happening on 202 through the heart of Montgomery County. The 202 project in Lower Gwinnett and Whitpain, East Norriton, those are all taking anywhere between 5 and 7 years to do because they're widening projects. It's not as easy as simply going down there, laying out new asphalt. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of other work, and moving traffic around. It just takes a long time to do. So Bill, next slide. This is probably the most interesting part of what I have to present to you. So Mr. Frary did allude to this. Right? We have a new act coming out of Congress, and it's what they call the quote-unquote hard infrastructure bill. It's now an act. The President signed it a week ago today, and it's called the IIJA. Bill? So I'm not going to go into the details. It's literally a 1,600-page act. I'm trying to make my way through it myself. There's a lot of pieces to it. But I'm going to try to summarize, I think, what might be most important to Horsham Township. So the good news is that our region is going to get about $100 million each for our roadways and for SEPTA annually. So we're upping what we're getting, okay? Bad news is, though, it's not as simple as just simply getting money. For the last couple of years, maybe the last 2 years, and projected to go over the next 12, before this act, PennDOT said we need to take money out of every region's highway pot and redirect it to what Harrisburg controls for the interstates, right? So we don't fund I-95 or the Schuylkill Expressway from our tip here in this region. Basically, the state has a master tip that funds all of them. I-81, I-83, I-95, I-80, you name it, it's all on this one. So they're saying, we have underfunded our interstates for a long time. We need to fund our interstates. The feds don't like it when you don't fund the interstates. So every region, like I said, was going to lose money every year for the next 12 years, and it would gradually go up in the amount that we lost, so they could redirect to the interstates. The IIJA basically replaces that money. Now, we're still trying to find out exactly what those numbers look like, but our best guess, it's more than back of the napkin, but it's not official, is that it basically replaces that money. So we're kind of made whole, and it means that our existing projects that, as we're updating the tip right now, we figured we'd have to push a couple of things out, particularly in some of the other counties. Doesn't look like we're going to have to do that. But what it probably means, though, is that we don't know yet if we'll be able to get new projects into the tip, or when we'll be able to get new projects into the tip. Not saying it can't happen, not saying that won't happen. We just don't have a good enough handle on the picture yet to know whether some of those things that Mr. Furry just talked about would be able to get in there and we'd be able to fund them, right? Every county has needs. We haven't added really anything new in the tip except for 1 or 2 projects literally in the last 17 years. It's been a dry spell. So this might open the floodgates, but it's probably not going to open them a whole lot. But again, we just don't know that. The issues really there are that we have maintenance needs all around the region. There's been a concern that we're not paving enough roads, we're not fixing enough potholes, we're not fixing enough bridges. And that's been a push for a good 10, 15 years. So that doesn't go away. And then, of course, federal money has to be matched. Federal highway money is 80%, and you've got to come up with the other 20. So an issue that Harrisburg is facing right now is, does the state have to raise about $1 billion to match the $4 or $5 billion that it's expected to get under the IIJA? We think of this as free money. It's not free money. It comes with a match. Just like, if your in-laws helped you buy a house and they said, no problem, but you got to put in 10% to what I'm giving you, it's the same type of thing. They want to see some buy-in. The state has to figure that out. So it's good. Good news is more money to the region, more projects, more maintenance, more stuff. Bad news is it's not necessarily a wish list or a chance to just throw everything in there. There's a lot more to it, and so we'll be working with Bill over the next couple of months as we understand that to make sure that we tell him what's going on too. Bill? And then the last thing, and this really plugs in well to what Mr. Ferry was saying. Next year, one of the things that our office, the Planning Commission, is going to be doing is starting a Transportation Investment Inventory, TII. We like big words in the Planning Commission. We like acronyms, so that's what we call it. But what that really means is we have a new comprehensive plan that's going to be released probably in 2025. And working backwards from there, you have to have maybe a year or two of public outreach, and before that you have to do some data collection. So all of a sudden you realize that 2022 is sort of the unofficial start of that new comprehensive plan process, and that planning. And so what we want to do in the transportation section is ask all of our municipalities, or at least the ones who will engage with us and answer our questions, and say, what do you guys want to do? Next slide, Bill. See, that map right up there, that's the Vision Roadway map. Those are all the projects that we have in our comprehensive plan. And these are kind of like the minor leagues. This is like single A, you know. The projects have to be on our comprehensive plan before we try to advance them into DVRPC's regional long-range plan. And once they're in DVRPC's regional long-range plan, then they're eligible to be on the tip. So you kind of got to work your way through the leagues here to get to the majors. And the first stop is being in our comp plan. So we need to update this map in the next comp plan. And that's what we want to reach out to and have discussions with Bill and with Eric and with you guys or staff next year. We want to say, what are your priorities? What are your projects? And so some of the things that Eric showed there in the Myria study may be things that this township wants to pursue with federal and state money to start by getting into our comp plan. So it's really important that our municipalities reach out and work with us, tell us, again, what their projects are, but we also want to know what their priorities are. Some municipalities, they want to widen the roads. Other ones want to fix their bridges. Other ones want to improve their transit. Some of them want to do all of it. And we just don't have a really good grasp in 2021, 2022, what our municipalities are thinking about what their transportation investments and priorities should be. It's not 1995 or 2000 anymore. Things have shifted on the ground. And so we want to make sure that we're in touch with what the real needs are in real life and on the ground in our municipalities. So that's what we're going to be doing next year. We'll be reaching out. We'll be working with Bill a lot. Bill does a great job, reaches out to me often. We talk about transportation all the time. And so I'm very confident that Horsham will be well represented. But we just want to make sure that you guys know that we'll be working with him to try to collect this before we do our next comp plan. So with that, Bill, I'm going to stick around for a little bit. And I know you have other presentations. But either now or then, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So everything that Eric just promised us is so the tip. So I want to go back to the interchange, the Willow Grove interchange, because that seems to be a real tipping point, so to speak. You're saying that they're going to do a study, but there's no money there to fund it, to fund the construction, and you don't even know if it can get on the tip
A couple things.
anytime soon.
Yeah, a couple
And
things.
if it does, it's probably, what, 10 years?
Well, let me answer a couple of those things, Mr. McCouch. Number one, it's not a study that they got money for. It's the actual engineering. the
Engineering,
actual
I'm sorry.
design, which is a lot better than a study. Like, you're actually designing it at that point.
Right.
You're creating a real project at that point. But yes, the problem is, though, is beyond that, where do you find the funding? It's sort of the problem that this township has had with Horsham and Limekiln, right? Bill has worked very hard with you as a council and with his staff to find ways to kind of piece things together to hit your, I forgot what the number is, Bill, is it 7 million or so?
10
10,
plus.
yeah, it goes up all the time, I understand.
10 to 12 million at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how transportation works, unfortunately. But it's the same type of thing. You know, at some point, Upper Moreland, with or without other partners, are going to have to cobble together the money to build that. And Horsham's been doing it. Lower Providence has been doing it. A number of our townships in particular have been piecing together money to do things. And they've been successful. It just takes time take some patience. So that's where this interchange is. Now, can it get on the tip? It can get on the tip, because unlike all the other interchanges in the study that we did back in 2015, it's where Walsh Road and Virginia Drive and Port Washington come out of, Willow Grove is the only one out of all those interchanges, besides Lafayette Street, that's in the regional long-range plan, DVRPC's long-range plan. That's what you have to be in order to get on the tip. And this one is on there. So we've been working with DVRPC that if there is additional money coming out of the IIJ to add new projects, we have a short list of priorities that we would like to advance, and that is among them. So the answer is it could get on the
Could
tip.
get there.
But there's no promise at this point, there's no guarantee yet. Again, transportation's the long game, guys. You gotta have patience, you gotta have, the willingness to see things through, to work hard to get there, and even then, it still takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years to do things.
Well, yeah, I know we've been talking about these interchanges for years now, right? Whether it was Willow Grove at Fort Washington, the slip ramp at Welsh Road. This has been going on for a while. It's just a matter of getting the money to do it, and of course, that's always the big issue, right?
Yeah, it often comes down to money, but also comes down to project delivery too. You know, if you're in the tip, the money will be there. We always say by the time you're ready to get to construction, because PennDOT doesn't like to have something engineered, buy the right of way, utilities are moved, everything's ready to go, and we don't have any money to build it. The money's always there. It just takes a while though to get there, and so much of our projects just take forever, as Mr. Ferry knows, because when you got to buy right of way, you got to deal with people, you got to work with people. You guys, I think, understand that, working on Horsham and Limekiln. Township did a great job of that, but it just takes time, and you can't bully your way through.
Not talking about right-of-way here, right? There's no right-of-way acquisition.
There shouldn't be, well, I mean, until you start in design, you don't quite know if you end up having to, go into an extra property, and all it takes is 1 square foot of a temporary construction easement to all of a sudden be in a right-of-way phase. But we don't know that yet, but theoretically, right-of-way acquisition should be little to nothing within that footprint.
And this would add an extra lane from Horsham into, or I guess in the Upper Moreland side to get on the turnpike to, on the side you're showing here by Home Depot?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I stood here, I was in the right turn lane to get into Home Depot Drive. And, my understanding is that's where it would go. Now, don't quote me on that because I haven't engineered it, but just eyeballing it, and you'd have to, make that another lane. Otherwise, you're taking it from the existing southbound lanes, and I don't think you want that.
Greg, essentially having a 2-lane ramp, and the bottleneck is the bridge.
Right, is the bridge a bit wide enough for 2 lanes?
Once you widen the bridge, you can squeeze.
Oh, they're wide, they would talk about widening? Okay.
Yeah, 2 lanes.
That's what I thought, okay.
Getting on, 1 lane going off.
So it's just not just the road, it's the bridge then as well.
Yeah, the bridge is the major
That's the big
cost.
project.
It's got to be wider, and it also has to be wider underneath, so you get 2 lanes through.
Right.
If you remember the Planning Commission's turnpike reinvestment plan that they did a few years back, this interchange had option 1 and option 2. Option 1 was a complete redo for 70-some million plus, or there was a $15 million option, and that's the option Upper Moreland's pursuing now with their design, is the $15 million option.
Okay, well, it's a step forward, right? Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. We look forward to things moving forward again. Take care. All right, next is the approval list of checks.
No.
Move to approve the list of checks.
Oh, one more slide.
I missed something?
One more slide. So that was the County Planning Commission. Now you have the Township Transportation Consultants. It's the
Oh, you
same
put it all on
agenda
the same
item.
line. huh?
One more slide.
You
One more
snuck one in.
slide. So I'll let Eric start on the first 2 bullets.
And I will be brief. So Blair Mill Road, and we've talked about this every year for a while now. No, I'm extremely happy to at least give you an update that as of this morning, we have all the information we need from the utilities. So the utilities are essentially cleared. Bill and I and the right-of-way consultant and PennDOT have been meeting. We're talking every Monday morning for the last month or so. And we're at, I think out of 11, 5 of the properties have cleared. The other 4, it's a matter of cutting checks and
You already have the
signed
checks.
documents.
Yep.
And so So right-of-way is close to being cleared, which is critically important because PennDOT won't let us advertise for construction until right-of-way is cleared. And we are working with PennDOT Construction Management to get all the plans and specs ready to go. So the way it's going to work is the project will be advertised through PennDOT, through their electronic construction management system. They will push the button, and we're shooting for sometime in December. So there's 2 letting dates, which is essentially a bid opening date in January, the 13th and 27th. We are estimating they're going to need anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks between the advertisement and the letting because of the holidays. So really with any luck, unless there's any major hiccups, we're looking at sometime in December to advertise. So.
Finally, on December 8th, your last meeting of the year, you will give approval to authorize advertisement of this project that we started in January of 2016.
When do you anticipate they'd be able to go to construction?
So beyond that point, so once they accept the bids, typically take the low bid, it could take anywhere from, I think PennDOT assumes 12 weeks to go through contract award. That could go faster because it's going to be a contract between the township and the contractor. So, a month or 2, and then that's at that point, it's notice to proceed and they start construction. So we're looking at an early spring, kickoff.
Cool.
And I would say most of the work should be done in 2022. There might be some, punch list items, that carry over into the winter in 23, but I don't see why this couldn't be done next year.
Great.
So next one is essentially a year behind Blair Mill, and essentially we're spending most of the time with right-of-way acquisition. So that's, again, it's going to be anywhere from 12 to 18 months to clear the right-of-way. That project in particular is going to take some time. We're dealing with a lot of property owners, some businesses. So, excuse me, focusing on the total acquisitions and relocations first. And then the rest will be just dealing with a lot of the strip takes that we have along Horsham and Limekiln. So again, we'll continue to update you on that, but that's going to take the bulk of the time. In the meantime, we'll continue to work with PennDOT on getting the plans and engineering, working with utilities. All the things we dealt with Blair Mill is the same with Horsham and Limekiln. Just
You're already working on the right-of-way, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the right-of-way is the plans are done. Now we're using the plans to actually go to the property owners, and I think all the appraisal's done.
Yep.
We're making offers, so it's just going through the process of actually acquiring the property.
Another 12 to 18.
I would say another 12. We're already 6 months in, I think, from.
Yes.
Yeah,
And things are going well so far. But this is a much bigger, we're taking property, we're taking businesses, and everyone's working well with us. We've been in communication for them since January 2016. So the owners and business owners, we've been working with them since then, and things are going as well as expected with right-of-way acquisition when you're taking someone's property.
Good. Next.
That's it, at least for me.
Drescher Road and Walnut Grove Drive traffic signal, that's later on in your agenda. We did open bids for that this past Friday. Hopefully, as you know, there's a supply chain issue in this world, global supply chain issue. So, as you know, when we ordered the traffic signal at Drescher and Horsham Road, it took 12 months after the signal was ordered for it to be received. We're hoping it's not that long this time for this signal, but hopefully you will award contract this evening, and then we can move forward on that project so that signal's in by the end of 2022. Blair Mill Road, Horsham Gate, Willow Point shopping centers. We all know that's a dangerous driveways coming out of those 2 shopping centers on Blair Mill Road. That new traffic signal is in PennDOT review stage. We hope that also will be up and operational by the end of next year. Drescher Road and Horsham Road landscaping island beautification project. We just did that signal. We did find grant money, $20,000 to irrigate the 2 islands on either corner, and we'll be landscaping them, and I think it's really going to make that intersection look great. So stay tuned for that. It might not look that great till the springtime, but we are putting the irrigation system in currently. Easton Road and Moreland Avenue, this is a Myria project that they've taken on. That new traffic signal is in the engineering stage. And Matt Edmond already updated us on the County Line Road Improvement Project. Or update.
Any questions on that? Everybody good? All right, thank you, Bill. Now, can we get a list of checks?
I move to approve the list of checks in all funds in the amount of $1,131,828.50, and further move to authorize payment of the same. I also move to ratify the check in the Park Improvement Fund in the amount of $5,000, and further move to authorize payment of the same.
Second.
Been moved in second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We have a resolution for land development for turn 14.
You reviewed that at your last meeting. They're just going to construct an exterior patio. So the solicitor did prepare a resolution for your consideration for a waiver of land development with conditions.
Everything's good, Mayor?
Yes, it is.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution as proposed, approving a waiver of land development with conditions for Term 14 Distribution Incorporated, 100 Tournament Drive, for the construction of an exterior patio.
Second.
Moved in second. It's a roll call vote.
Mr. Gallagher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Hill Milborn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next is the ZHB.
You only have one to review this evening. It's a residential on Brewster Lane, which is in our R2 zoning district. They would like to construct an in-ground swimming pool, so it's an impervious coverage issue. They're permitted 20% of impervious coverage, 17.3% exist, and if they're granted the variance that they would like for the pool, they would go to 21.1%, so it's 1.1% over, and staff is neutral.
Are you okay with that? Okay, let that go neutral. That's another resolution for keeping Horsham as a whole in the redistricting.
So as council's aware, every census, there is a law that the state must form their commission and address redistricting each census. So we always have taken the position that we want one state senator, one state rep to speak for the voice of Horsham and not divide Horsham. In the past, we've had two state reps. I forget the numbers of them, but so we've had two state reps. Now we have one state rep. We have one state senator. I wish we had one U.S. Congressperson, but we have two. But we're doing better. We used to have three. We used to have three U.S. Congress districts in Horsham. Now we're down to two. But this is our chance. The commission is looking for comment and feedback from municipalities and anyone else that wants to provide them feedback. And I think my recommendation that you consider this resolution tonight, because we are even in a more unique situation than any other municipality in the Commonwealth. And for two primary reasons, the Navy base. That's a very unique situation to redevelop 800, 900 acres of your township. As we continue to move forward in that process, we really need one voice to speak for us. PFAS, the water contamination issue, affects our entire township. Don't divide us. We need one voice, as a state rep. We need one state senator as our voice. So we're even in, we have those pressing issues that are very unique that most municipalities are not dealing with. And if we have one voice, we can have a unified voice for all of our residents and our entire township. So that's the resolution in front of you this evening, is to send to the Redistricting Commission of the Commonwealth so they have our comments.
Anybody agree with that?
I do have a question. So the way things currently stand, has there not been adequate support with multiple voices?
Well, we've had, it's much easier when we had Tom, in the past it was Tom Mert, had a section of our township, and Todd Stevens, Rick Taylor, Gene McGill, all of those state reps. But it was a lot easier. Sometimes Representative Mert and the other representative did not agree on everything all the time. So it's been much easier with one voice.
With all due respect to everyone who served in the past, when there's been multiple representatives or in other municipalities where I work where there's multiple representatives, perhaps the township doesn't get the devotion that it gets when one person is responsible for the whole township. If the township's divided, then they've got a piece of this township, a piece of that township, a piece of another township, and the enthusiasm for the single township hasn't been there.
Anything else? Okay, we need a motion.
I move to approve the resolution as proposed, urging that portion of the community not be divided as part of the proposed 2021 legislative redistricting effort.
Second.
Been moved in second. It's a roll call vote.
Mr. Gallagher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Hill Milborn, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, next is to consider the results of the Drescher and Walnut Grove traffic signal.
So we opened them up on Friday. They're in your packets. We had 5 bidders. The highest was Armour & Son Electric at $601,453. And the lowest was Carr and Duff at $534,633.80. And they met all of our qualifications, Carr and Duff, and they are recommended as the lowest responsible bidder this evening.
You have a motion.
I move to award the Drescher Road and Walnut Grove traffic signal bid to Carr and Duff, Inc. in the amount of $534,633.80, and hereby authorize execution of the contract for same.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next is to review the budget. Has much changed, Bill?
Not much has changed. Not much at all has changed, so I'll go through it very rapidly because this would be your final review and then for your consideration on December 8th. So I expect the $18 million figure to change a little before your adoption on December 8th. Nothing dramatically. That's normal as we work out year-end projections and carry over for next year. But there is no tax increase for next year. The outstanding principal were a little over $8 million. That has not changed at all. This sort of breaks down the real estate tax rate. The library gets 0.47 mils, or about $85 on average from a homeowner. The fire company, 0.51 mils, $92. Parks, 0.32 mils, and about $58. All the earned income tax rate, local services tax rate, streetlight assessment, hydrant tax rate, all is remaining the same for next year, no increases. And here's some comparisons of how we compare to some other neighbors. And the blue bars are the tax rate millages, and underneath the town's name is the population of that town. And this is something that we always look at as we compare ourselves. And as you can see, Low Gwinnett's just slightly a little less than Horsham in real estate tax, but we are far less than most of our neighbors around us and the tax millage rates that each of those communities have. This is another chart that we show, same townships on the left-hand side, their population, their 20 populations underneath their municipal names. And then their tax rates are in blue, but their green is in the square miles of the township. And as you can see, Horsham is the largest in square miles, with 17.3 square miles in area, and with 1.3 mils of taxation for real estate. As I said, our revenue stream is not being able to keep pace with growth in services and maintenance in the future. The outlook is that we'll see more growth in expenditures and a further decline in revenues. And we really don't know what the impacts are going to be to our office parks just yet. The good news is we've heard some are coming back in February and March. Bad news is we've also heard others are permanently not coming back. So we don't know what that impact is going to be on us. We will know throughout the year next year of how that will affect us and our budget on our office parks. Some of our projects, the Whitmer Road Basin redesign, which is part of MS4 mentioned down below. We're going to be starting an e-newsletter to continue to try to reach as many residents as we can, which is much news and openness and transparency as we can of what's going on in the township. We talked about the engineering and permit applications for the extension of the power line trail. Unfortunately, just this week, we got notice from PECO that they're ceasing all future recreation and trails under any of their power lines and on any of their properties. So after we get this budget adopted and after your December 8th meeting, I scheduled a meeting to have with PECO to see if there's any options or if they're going to have any leeway. So it wasn't the answer that we were looking for. Right now, they are not asking anyone to remove anything from underneath on their properties, underneath their lines, but as right now, their new policy and position is no more. So, and the reason is they expect they conducted a study, and they expect that their lines that they have now, they're going to have to up their voltage to meet the demands of the future of this area with electrical needs, and they do that will could possibly cause people to be shocked walking underneath the lines. So it wasn't the news that we were hoping for and looking for, but we will be meeting with PECO in the coming months to see if there's any leeway or options. Form an ad hoc committee to design new park entrance signs, security cameras for the community center, floodgates for Keith Valley Road. Branding banners will get started next year. We'll continue to fund all engineering costs related to the Horsham Little League Association's Miracle Field and the Horsham Soccer Association's Turf Field. Both organizations are raising $1 million for each project, and our commitment to them is the engineering for the projects. Return of Horsham Day after 2 years of being off. We're going to be researching electric vehicle charging stations and solar energy next year. We're going to be looking at the front desk area of the Horsham Township Library. It was built in 2004, so it'll be 18 years old next year. So we want to, this is just Upper Dublin Township's new library and their circulation area. So we want to just take a look with an architect to see what we can do to brighten it up and make it fresh looking and keep up with the library. Our paving project, I won't run down this list, but these are the roads that are being paved next year as part of our paving project. Some other capital projects, we talked about the traffic signal at Drescher and Walnut Grove, the repaving of the Cola Park parking lot off Horsham Road, the Blair Mill Road widening project phase 2, that's about a $6 to $7 million project. Horsham Road and Limekill Pike intersection of project will continue with right-of-way acquisition and final engineering next year, going to bid, and then construction in 2023. The street light project will happen next year too. There's about approximately 100 street lamps that we will be adding into the Pennsylvania Lifestyle Campus to make that campus more walkable, safe, and so it can be alive in the evenings and nighttime. And economic development, we will again host a broker's breakfast in Horsham. We will continue with our restaurant week. We're looking at having a job fair. We'll continue advertising and marketing the township nationwide. We'll host a State of Horsham luncheon. We're going to be creating a new business recognition program, a new business welcoming program. And probably the biggest item is the shuttle bus pilot program will start next year. We're calling it HOPS right now, Horsham Office Park Shuttle. The shuttle bus, the township will be running the shuttle bus from the Ambler train station to the Pennsylvania Lifestyle Campus. We hope to start that up in March or April of next year. Capital comprehensive plan, year 1, replace 4 police cars, replace a public works pickup truck, purchase a public works excavator, new full-time position, a special events coordinator, painting the exterior of the Public Works facility. And that's our timeline, and then this is the second to the last, and then December 8th, you would be consideration of the adoption of the budget at your December 8th meeting. And these are the, how we maintain our low tax rate. In Horsham is conservative budgeting practices, and we maintain our infrastructure. We do not let our infrastructure fall apart or kick that can down the road. We maintain healthy reserve funds in our capital, roads, and parks. We maintain our high bond rating, AA1, which is the second to the highest. We have our balanced budget, and at the same time, we're maintaining the quality of life, services to our residents, and we are keeping the township moving forward. And just talking about our revenue and looking into the future and the impacts to our office parks, we don't yet know. And that's it.
Anybody have any questions? May we go to vote next meeting? Okay. That being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
All right, meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.